and make sure you sign in for being here for this. So besides the fact that we work with silica out on job sites, why is it we're talking about this now? Specifically now.
Regulations are changing.
Yes. So there's the new silica standard is now in play in Virginia. It went into effect June 23rd. Fed OSHA passed it, and then they put a stay on it till September 23rd, which is next week. And we have up until the 23rd to hear, and a lot of times they wait till the last minute. It could get pushed again as far as not being enforced, or they could change it, or they could do away with it, or it could go into effect September 23rd as far as Fed OSHA. However, VOSH decided they're going with the June 23rd date. So since June 23rd, it's not a point of emphasis right now, but it is where if they see something draws their attention when it comes to silica, a proof of dust or something, an activity, that then they can stop and work and take a look at it and inspect. But it was not going to be something they were going after. It wasn't a target, but it's something that if they do see it, that they will stop. So it is affecting us now in Virginia. Most of the subs that we've been working with, the larger ones and the more reputable ones, have been taking care of this since day one anyway. They're abiding by our safety policy, which has been as stringent as this for quite a few years now. It's the smaller time outfits and smaller activities that are of the concern, because some of these companies, and that's why Fed OSHA pushed it for at least 3 months, is to give companies a chance to invest in the tools and equipment that they need so that we don't have silica exposure. So this is VOSHA's presentation. Added a few things from what the other divisions that we have already spoken about. All right. So we want to make sure that we understand that silica is hazardous. Although it's been around forever, the recognition of it and the hazards associated with it, it's become basically our generation's asbestos. It's bad stuff, and if exposed to too much of, it's not curable. So it's something that we're going to see, could be the asbestos thing where 10, 20, 30 years from now, guys in the field now are going to start having the effects of it if they've been exposed too much and we don't take the proper precautions. So we'll talk about what is silica, the health hazards, the exposure limits, where it's found in construction, how it can be controlled, and then respirators. So what is silica? It's quartz. It's found in the rock, sand, and soil. It's everything that we work with, the concrete, the brick, the mortar. This is what a lung looks like that has silicosis. And there is no cure for this. It's not reversible. So once somebody's been working for X amount of time and is exposed to too much and has not been wearing the PPE, over time, this is what happens to your lungs. It's nasty stuff, and just anything that's airborne is the hazard, and that's what we breathe in. Then this is what potentially we're going to have to deal with down the road. Symptoms: early stages go unnoticed, shortness of breath, long periods of exposure, chest pain. I mean, a lot of these conditions could be with any other health situations that you may have. So obviously one of the first questions they're going to ask when you start having these symptoms is, what do you do for a living? And when you say construction, then they'll start to look at things that would be more related to silicosis. So we need to make sure that we're wearing the proper PPE, if not eliminating the hazard to begin with. So breathing this in on regular basis, so you're susceptible to other lung diseases. Again, you actually could see effects of this if it's large amounts that you're being exposed to a short period of time, but most of the time it's the chronic deal, and again, it's going to be 10, 20, 30 years down the road before you start to see the effects of it. The standard is 1926, 1153. It has definitions in there. It talks about controls, and it talks about the respiratory protection to have in play when you're going to be exposed to it. Housekeeping procedures, a written plan, medical surveillance, Why do we need, why would we have medical surveillance and fit testing? Come on.
Respirators.
Yeah, the respirators. If it's anything besides the N95 particulate mask, the dust mask, then putting on a respirator means you have to have training and you have to have gone through the medical evaluation. So you guys should be accustomed to, if I see somebody wearing a respirator out in the field, you may have seen them for 2 or 3 weeks and it didn't really click. We're asking them, have you been trained? Where's your card? Because you're going to have a card that shows that you've been fit tested. So respirators, we shouldn't see them out there unless the subs have gotten that training done with their employees. Painter, a lot of the painting companies have done it, regardless of what paint that they're working with, and most of it is not harmful that requires respirators. They put their guys in the respirators anyway, but they've done that training. The asbestos abatement companies, the lead abatement companies, they've all done that. But concrete companies, the masons, a lot of times the guys are wearing respirators and they've not been trained. And the N95 dust mask would be sufficient in most cases, but they want to wear that respirator because they feel like it's going to help them. Remember from the OSHA classes when we do respirator section, wearing a respirator, not being properly trained, you could actually kill yourself because you need to make sure that it fits properly, that you don't have any medical condition that you're not aware of, that by wearing the respirator could actually kill you because you're cutting off your air circulation or limiting it. So the PELs, the permissible exposure levels, in the air it's 50 micrograms. That's what the legal limit is set at. But when we reach 25, we need to take action. So how do we know when we reach that limit? How do we know when we've gotten to that point? What are resources that you'd be able to find out with what you're working with?
The detectors and stuff.
What's that?
The detectors.
Yep, you can monitor. You can do surveillance out in the field, or we can refer to our SDSs. So when it comes to the sheetrock guys, because they're not going to fall under Table 1, which we're going to talk about in a minute, there's silica and sheetrock, and a lot of the products that they use. So the easiest way to find out whether they're going to have to go through any different procedures is they have to check their SDSs. And the SDSs really, because 25 means action, they've set it at 20. If what they're working with has 20 micrograms in it or more, then they have to actually look at the different controls in place. If it's less than 20, then they're saying that that's not exposure level enough to have to worry about that. So the subcontractors working in that area need to make sure that their SDSs are current, the current SDSs, and that they've looked at those to ensure that when they're sanding or doing anything that could expose that silica, that they're not in that range. And we have not seen yet. I don't think Lyle's even looked at them closely enough yet to find out Georgia Pacific and other manufacturers where they're at, but we want to make sure that the subs know. That's their documentation, because if it's above or they don't know, then they have to provide the monitoring testing to be able to show that it is or is not a hazard. All of this is based on an 8-hour time-weighted average. So if you're only doing it 4 hours a day, or you're only doing it for 30, 40, 50 minutes a day, then you're not going to be in that exposure level. But it's a trade that's working in it and producing silica on an 8-hour regular day, 10-hour day. Those are the subs that need to make sure that they have the proper procedures in place. So rule of thumb, if the dust containing silica is visible in the air, usually it's over the permissible limit. So when we see those poof of dust, when they're dumping something into the mixer and you get that dust that kicks up, when they're using the saw and they're cutting the joint lines, that's going to kick up. More than likely, you're going to be exposed to it. So we need to make sure that they've got procedures in place that we don't get that exposure. Various tasks going on in the field where we're going to get this. Obviously, this is where we're looking at it mostly, and then anything with the masonry and the concrete. Sandblasting, rock drilling. Common task, jackhammering. sanding. Using these saws generates the dust. So what have you seen out in the field as far as being able to not have that dust and still use these tools? Water's the easiest thing. If the machine doesn't have the water hookup option, what is their option for supplying water to be able to still keep it down? What's that?
Pump sprayer.
Yeah. Cutting brick and block, again, putting water to it. Tuck pointing. So administrative and engineering controls have to be in play. The easiest thing with this is to have the engineering controls because we don't want, yes, you can alternate schedules so that you're not affecting the rest of the subs, but you're still going to have it present. Unless it's impossible to get rid of it, you want the engineering controls in play, which is your water. Make sure that you can eliminate it and you don't even have to worry about it being exposed to it. So determining where the subs, the work that's being done, and I keep saying subs, but I know at some point we're probably self-performing to where we might create this. So the first thing we're going to have to ask is, are we working it an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day to where we have to worry about it? Or are you just sending a guy in to do something for an hour or two and we really don't have to be as concerned and basic PPE will be covered? But table 1 is the big thing. And when I mentioned the sheetrock guys, they don't fall under table 1, which is why they have to provide documentation or do the monitoring, the air monitoring, to be able to show that they are or not in an exposure limit. So table 1, we'll get to in a minute. Well, it's here now. Anything using these, and it's 17 different pieces of equipment or tools that are used. If it generates that poof, then it falls under table 1. So if a sub or us is using any of this stuff, then we're going to have engineering controls in place because it's going to create the dust.
Let me ask this. So you got a guy cutting, the hardy siding, all right? Everybody else may be fine, but the guy cutting the hardy siding, is there like something he can wear? Is there a monitoring device that he can wear? Because he's right there cutting it all day long.
Well, the SDS hopefully will say whether it is or isn't. If it's over that 20 micrograms.
Right.
If it is over the 20 micrograms, then yeah, he needs engineering controls. So, is it hooked up to vacuums? Is there a HEPA vacuum attached to it that immediately sucks it up as it's creating it? In which case, a dust mask would be fine because he's just trying to keep the nuisance stuff out of it.
Yeah, the HEPA vacuum works for about the first 2 hours, and then I'll clean it out.
I mean, they're expensive, they require more maintenance, but I mean, the options are water or vacuum in order to eliminate it. So this is out of the standard. So it says, if it's less than 8 hours, what's required as far as PPE, if it's greater than 4 hours, excuse me, and if it's greater than 4 hours, what the required PPE is. A dust mask provides this APF factor of 10. So if it requires more than APF 10, then you're looking at the respirator, full-blown respirator, not the N95. The other option, if you're not in table 1 for the work that you're doing, the materials that you're working with, then the other option is you have to have data to be able to support why it is you either are using engineering controls or respiratory protection, or you don't need it. And that's going to be based on SDSs and some kind of monitoring. You can use industry-wide monitoring surveys. So ABLE asked that question and asked if we get the surveys provided from the sheetrock supplier. It's not something they did on site, but it's something that's accepted to the industry. Is that acceptable? And it is acceptable because that task is a common task, whether you do it here, California, or Colorado, wherever. So that would be acceptable, but they have to have that documentation. So as far as our work sites, if we're self-performing, our standard right now, our safety policy right now does not specifically address silicone for us. because when it was written, and it's changing, and I think he's gonna probably change and add something in here, but normally self-performing is not what we do, we have the subs do that. But when we have to do something, we're following the standards, the Fed standards, or whichever state that we're working in, if they have a state plan and more stringent standards. As far as the subcontractors, they're following our safety policy. That's in the contract. And we, like I said, we've addressed silica for several years now, and we're basically saying we don't want that proof of dust on the job site, period. So figure out an engineering control that eliminates that, because it's not only the sub that's doing the work that we're concerned with exposure, it's everyone else working around them. And we don't want a situation where they're creating it, and maybe they're protected, but the other 3 subs working around them aren't, and they complain. We need to make sure that we've looked out for them, so that we don't get that complaint call from OSHA because we've got it on site and we're not getting it addressed. This is out of our safety policy, so we want to make sure that we've got nothing exposed. We want it eliminated, and that they have to wear the proper PPE.
Is there a distance, like if you say the guy's cutting masonry block, we put him off in the far corner, and say 100 feet from anybody else? Is that,
I mean, as long as you're monitoring and showing that, I mean, if the wind picks up and it carries it in our direction, if you're monitoring that and document that on your dailies, then yeah, I mean, keeping him isolated, and as long as he's got his controls and his PPE, he's fine. But we don't know, we're not always that lucky where we can have them segregated. On a job site, a large job site that we're kicking up, it's been dry, we haven't had any rain, the winds are kicking up, the sand that's on site, we probably know with other activities on site that anything that had silica is probably in that dirt that as we're driving around, we're kicking that up. We have to be concerned that's going to travel to anybody, especially if it's in an area where it can affect the public. We want to make sure that never crosses the job site lines. We have that currently, and we've had it in the past where we've had to worry about that not getting beyond the job site lines, so that we don't affect the public and have them making phone calls or being concerned. When dust is controlled, the exposures are low. If we don't control it, then that it is high, and we need to make sure that we're addressing it. Again, using water, using a vacuum. Yes, it's going to slow the process down probably a little bit, but these are options to eliminate it. Sandblasting, we're not getting into that. Housekeeping is the other big thing, and this does affect us more than or as much as with the subs. We perform housekeeping on the job sites, whether we're using temps or we're using our own people. It's going to get to the point now where if we're sweeping up, we can't have that dust, because more likely wherever they're cleaning up, at some point there's silica mixed in with that. So we have to use dust down. We have to use vacuums. That's going to probably slow the process down as well. But that's something that we seriously have to look at within Clancy, because that's actually what we do, or we're bringing in people to do on behalf of us. So we have to make sure we take that into account. This ties in with the using the temps. I know I saw the email come out, a month or so ago from Dean about the contracts and the temps. We've been addressing this as far as temp labor for the last year plus. It's on the safety website. It's on that front page about temp labor. Temp laborers on site are our employees minus the paycheck that they get from, because they're getting it from the temp agency. But we need to treat them like they are Clancy and Days employees. So if they need training, we have to provide it, unless we can show from the temp agency that they've done that training. We can get documentation that they have that. If we do a toolbox talk and they're on site, they are part of our toolbox talk. So if you're a super on site and you have no employees but you have 3 temps, then unfortunately your toolbox talk is not just your name that week. You have to include those temps, because they have to be part of our training. And now with silica, we have to make sure that they've got the PPE they need, and that's something we need to provide, not expect that labor ready, whoever gave it to them to come on site with. and make sure that they've had silica training. So if we need to get with the temp agencies to find out if they're doing that before they come out, or that's something we do once they're on site, they have to be made aware of this. It's no different than if they come in on a job site and we do asbestos awareness training with all the subs as well as them. We're responsible for them. So when a temp gets hurt, you know, that could be where we're going 50-50 on the injury unless the temp agency just takes that on. That just came up, Florida Division, a temp fell out the other morning because of the heat, completely dehydrated. He was taken off by the ambulance. We're gonna have to wait and see whether the temp agency is gonna be looking for us to help out in that situation or if they're just gonna absorb it. Respirators. So we have the air purifying or the atmosphere supplying. I've yet to be on a job where we've had this. We've got these, and then we've also got the N95s. And again, the chart, based on the work, it shows you what the APF rating is. So if a certain task requires an APF of 50, then we shouldn't see dust masks on site. So that's all going to be based on what the material that we're using and the SDSs spell out. Just say the last thing. Respirator requirements. Right now, Florida is the only division that has four or five employees that have gone through the respirator fit testing and training, because they've got a self-performing crew down there, and they were doing some painting for one of the schools that we're working on, and the paint required a full respirator. So they went through that. Everywhere else, we shouldn't be doing anything that requires more than the dust mask. And make sure we have the Appendix D training. You know, I send that out twice a year, give or take, just to make sure we stay on it with any of the any of the employees we have. We've added and lost employees regularly this year. Again, if a temp labor is on site, make sure that they're part of this as well. And then subcontractors on site, as far as respiratory protection, they're going to follow. We're telling them to follow the ANSI and OSHA standards, but that's spelled out in the subcontractor safety policy. Again, respirators have to fit properly in order for them to be effective. So if you've got a full beard, even with the N95 dust mask, it's probably not going to fit properly to the point where you're going to be protected with what's around you. So it has to be fit tested, it has to fit properly. If you see, and we just saw it on a job site, a dust mask, 2 straps. If you see a dust mask on site with 1 strap, it is not NIOSH approved. It's basically taking a heavier piece of paper and putting it to your face with a cheap rubber band. It's got to be the 2 strap. That's all we purchase, and hopefully our subs are already doing that. But we just recently saw it where a sub was on site with one of their employees, and he was wearing one of the 1 straps. The 2 strap, 1 high and then 1 in the back of the neck, allows it to fit properly when you pinch the nose and get it around your face. If it's just a 1 strap, it's not going to work right. And again, the training, if it's the full-blown, go through the training with what the manufacturer has, go through the medical fit test and the evaluation, and ensure that it's got the proper seal to wear it, and it'll be effective. All right, quick quiz. Where is silica found?
B.
B? Everyone agree?
Yes.
All right. 2, why is dust containing silica so dangerous? A. And why must you be clean shaven to wear some respirators?
B.
B?
Needles interfere with breathing. Legal respirator.
C. Some will allow the stubble, some won't. And that's based on manufacturer. So that's just, each one has to be consulted for that. Some allow a mustache, and then it says how high it has to be. Some say no hair, period. Most of the guys in here would not be allowed to wear. Some it would be questionable. But yeah, it may say that you have to be clean cut every day you come in wearing it. Any questions? So, I mean, we've known about it, we know it's out there, but now it's being addressed. There's too many people out in the industry that are getting sick and coming down with silicosis that they decided they had to start enforcing it and put more stringent rules in place. So that's it for silica. I did a webinar yesterday hoping that there might be some more information. There wasn't. But because Bosch put it on in conjunction with HD Supply and they didn't give us a big window, it expires tomorrow at the end of the day. But if we feel like we're going to be doing something that's going to involve producing silica dust and you don't have the tools properly outfitted, Bosch has worked with HD Supply. Here's the code, and we can get an extra discount off any of the tools or equipment that we need. So if you think we might need to upgrade some of our equipment or tools, now's the time to do it. HD Supply has a really good discount for us already. I'm assuming they'll honor this one as well. But definitely get with them if you need something. They'll help us out. I want to go over the safety website real quick because I'm still getting a lot of calls and emails about forms, templates, things. Do we have them? Do they exist? Where do I find it? The website's got, I'm not saying it's got everything, and he keeps adding stuff and taking things off that aren't needed on a regular basis, but the website, go there, check it out. All your pre-test, your pre-install, all the templates are there for every major task that we have when you're doing pre-con with a sub. So you can go straight there and print it out. It's got a sign-in sheet if you don't already have one for the pre-con. It's got one in there. Safety data sheets. He has not updated that very much, but all we right now have in there is fuel, because that's the only thing that consistently through the branches we buy, we purchase commonly. The manuals and policies, it's got our safety policy on there. It's got the subcontractor safety policy. I know I give you the posters, but if you wanted to print the poster, it's on there. Forms, hot work permit, trenching excavation permit, the accident incident report is on there. So it just can't stress enough that the website has a lot of the stuff that you're looking for and asking for.
And did you check those steps to see if those rails were a problem?
No, I left that to Sean and Lyle. That's what you got out of this? I'm glad you're looking out for it.
I'm wondering why they didn't get rode up for it.
It's a job site trailer. Those don't get messed with anymore, right?
They did.
Yeah, they do now. And then another reminder, I've got the sheet here. So if you're in the room and you're on this list, would you please sign up? We need to get these classes. I canceled 2 days worth of classes this week because I had 2 people signed up. We need 3 or 4 to have a first aid CPR class. There's quite a few people on here. Some are hourlies, haven't gotten response. If they're on your job, can you sign them up for a time and note it? But we need to get these classes done. This list is either people who are coming up due or have just recently expired, so we need to get that up. Remember, we have to have somebody on site who's first aid CPR trained. And I know a lot of our jobs have gotten tighter where it's just a super. And maybe one hourly. So if one of you is gone, the other one has to be trained. So please make sure that if you're on there that you do sign up. Any questions about silica or anything else safety-wise? All right, thank you.